Welcome you all to Believers IAS Academy, and let's begin the session today with respect to the species and news. So today we have two more interesting species. The first one is a kind of beetles, in fact family of beetles, where it is in news because of the newly discovered 6 new species of Sericine beetles, right? So this is in news and this is very important considering the ecological important role that it plays. So even before we talk about the beetles, let's understand the background. So researchers from the Zoological Survey of India and Germany's Museum A. Koenig have identified this new 6 species of Sericine scarab beetles. So it is very important. So these findings were also published in the journal named Zootaxa, which is a reputed global taxonomic publication, right? And this particular finding has highlighted India's rich yet underexplored insect diversity, especially in biodiversity hotspots like the northeastern Himalayas and the western Ghats, right? So basically we're talking about the biodiversity hotspots in the Himalayas, the Indo-Burma region, and also your western Ghats, right? We're talking about that particular insect or beetles, which is the family of insects which is endemic to this particular biodiversity hotspot, which is pretty much the northeastern Himalayas, the eastern Ghats, and also part of the Indo-Burma biodiversity. Makes it very important of a species that is like an indicator in terms of the health of the ecosystem concerning these areas or these biodiversity hotspots. So which are those new species that were identified? One is the Maladera champiensis in the Mizoram region, Neoserica churanchand purensis in the Manipur region, Maladera barasinga named after the Indian swamp deer, and then Maladera lumlensis in the Arunachal Pradesh, and then Sericea sabansirensis, which is in Arunachal Pradesh. So if you see, roughly about 4 out of 6 new beetle species which were identified were from the northeastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot or northeastern Himalayan region, and one was from the western Ghats, the Maladera onum, which was found in the Kerala, especially lying in the western Ghats, right? So what is the importance of this particular beetle species? So talking about the ecological importance, it has 2 different roles, a mixed role. See, one, it acts as an agriculture pest in a negative way, where it eats the crop, right, or let's say damages the crop, right, and it kind of acts like a pest, right, in a negative way. And also on other ground, it even contributes, like on a positive note, it even acts as an agent which can provide soil aeration and also can ensure fertility by breaking down organic matter. So basically we're talking about different types of beetles which are good and also bad. So there are few which are good in nature, especially those that can help provide soil aeration because of its unique diet. Let's say it feeds on the dead leaves, right, or let's say all the organic matters, dung, which are present in the roots of the plants, right? So this in a way creates soil aeration to the plant, and also whatever it digests or eats, it even ensures that it leaves out certain manure, or it ensures that it increases the fertility of the soil as it breaks down organic matter which is in and around that particular plant. And also there are certain beetles which are very bad. In fact, they are considered to be agricultural pests, right? So this is also one important thing. It has mixed role, although it is beetle, so it has both positive positive connotation, or let's say positive side of it, and also there's a negative side of it. And talking about the practical benefit, early identification helps in designing eco-friendly pest management. So early identification of knowing the beetles, if they are good or bad, is going to help on the long run for an eco-friendly pest management. Means if the farmers or if the concerned agriculture land owners, right, if they clearly know, if they know the identification of certain good beetles and bad beetles, it helps these farmers or the concerned authorities to help design a particular plan or an eco-friendly pest management strategies to ensure that they don't harm the good beetles, right? Also, they can have strategies to make sure that they eradicate the bad beetles or bring some measures to control the bad beetles and increase the good beetles that can actually be more productive to the agriculture farmland. And it also reduces dependence on harmful chemical pesticides. As we discussed, these good beetles, we also call them natural farmers. So these beetles, some of the species which are good to these plants, are also classified as natural farmers in the ecosystem. So hence the dependence on the harmful chemical pesticides reduces, and also it helps align with sustainable agriculture goals, making sure that the contaminated, or let's say making sure it reduces the contamination of water or even soil, right? And also make sure that the contamination of even the fruits, vegetables, whatever is grown is reduced to certain extent. Now let's solve one prelims question. This is more than sufficient what we have studied about this particular beetle. So yeah, recently researchers from the Zoological Survey of India and Germany's Museum Ekenog discovered 6 new species of the Sericinae scarab beetles. Consider the following statements. Most of the newly discovered species were found in the Himalayan biodiversity hotspot. One of the species, especially Maladera barasingha, is named after Indian swamp deer. The Western Ghats, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is also part of the discovery. All 6 species were discovered in the northeastern states of India. Which of the statements are correct? Please use the comment section and also use your common sense. And UPSC time and again has proved to test the common sense and the aspirants by giving so many questions directly from the blueprint, which is your PYQs. Please analyze your PYQs and then try and solve or try and attend to all the topics that you are studying, and then at the end try and solve the questions. Now moving on to the next topic, tarantulas of the Western Ghats. Basically, tarantulas is kind of a spider. In fact, it is also called as the pet spiders, which mostly is famous for having them as pets. So basically, why is it in news? Because 4 new species of this tarantulas have been recently discovered, and which are those? One is the Haploclastus brutacolonus, which is a tree-dwelling tarantula, lives in hollow trees near rivers. And then another species, Haploclastus montanus, which lives at elevations above 2000 meter, one of the highest living tarantulas in the region. So these 2 names, it's better if you keep in mind, and also if not, let's try and understand the other species, the features of this particular species, right? So yeah, why was it in news? Because of the recent research where it was conducted in the Western Ghats. It was identified that 4 new tarantula species have been discovered, including a new genus called Celantica. So we will be studying more about this particular genus here. So what are the unique traits? One of the unique traits of this particular tarantula species is that the females of this particular species, they carry egg sacs under their mouth parts. So basically, if this is the body, right, and under their mouth there lies a sac which acts like an egg sac, which carries eggs. Especially the female, they carries egg sac, and then they build hammock like silk structures to protect eggs. And Celantica especially distinguished by a curved bristles, unlike the other tarantulas usually which have C type of bristles over their body, right? So these are some of the important unique traits. The first unique trait is important to keep in mind, that is sufficient. And talking about its habitat, it is found in tree hollows, shola forests, along the streams, and even near the tea plantations. Many species are endemic. So always keep in mind for UPSC, any species which is endemic, you have to know. So this particular species of tarantula is endemic to this particular region or wherever it is found, and restricted to a very small patches of Western Ghats, making them highly vulnerable. Means anything and everything happens to Western Ghats will directly affect this particular species, tarantulas, because they are endemic and they are accustomed to be living in a particular patch, a very small patch in the Western Ghats. So whatever happens, even the conservation with respect to Western Ghats is directly linked to the protection of these species, right? So anything and everything with respect to any animal or any species or any plant which is endemic becomes very important, because the reduction of their population or the increase in their population is a clear indication of how the Western Ghats or that particular area is performing, is what is important. So always keep in mind, if a species is endemic, it is always best to remember. Can you think of any other species? One is long-tailed macaque, right, which is one of UPSC's favorite topic. Long-tailed macaque is also endemic to Western Ghats, right? So very important. Make a list of all those species which are endemic to Western Ghats, Himalayan regions, or all the biological hotspots, right? So it's very important. And now talking about the ecological importance, they act as biological pest controllers because they feed on insects, small invertebrates, and even tiny vertebrates. They serve as keystone species because of the presence of healthy undisturbed forest ecosystems, as we discussed, because of its characteristic feature that it is endemic to a particular region. Let's say here in this case, for example, Western Ghats, right? They serve as a keystone species in indicating the health of this Western Ghats. So now let's say if the species count of this tarantula which is endemic to Western Ghats has reduced, it is a clear indication that there is some problem with respect to the habitat in which it is living. In essence, it means Western Ghats is being affected, right? The habitat is being affected, for which the population of this particular tarantula is reduced, right? So it kind of gives an indicator. I think we discussed about this, right? And it indicates healthy undisturbed forest ecosystems. And also it is a part of the food chain because it is eaten by spider wasps and also small carnivores. So this is also important. It's part of a food chain. Now talking about the conservation concerns, what are the threats? One is the illegal pet trade, as we discussed. It is even considered as a pet spider, right? Many species appear for sale online soon after their discovery. And another problem is with respect to habitat destruction due to agriculture, deforestation, and climate change, right? So that is also another important thing. And talking about the challenges with respect to its conservation, one is it is difficult to detect in smuggling, because this is another important point you have to keep in mind, that this particular species, the tarantulas, they lack skeletons. These are the ones which do not have skeletons like vertebrates or invertebrates. Rather, they have an exoskeleton which is called chitin, right? It is a hard shelled exoskeleton, right? So hence they have no bones, and it becomes difficult to scan them, especially in the airports or any particular means of travels, like if they want to scan, because x-rays usually they work on skeleton systems, right? Like you want to get an x-ray of a bone, right? Or let's say you want to identify if there is a fracture in your bone, you have to get an x-ray, right? So since these tarantulas lack bones, they have an exoskeleton made up of chitin, or the exoskeleton which is called as chitin. It is very difficult for the agencies or the organization authorities to detect them if they are being smuggled. Another important challenge, or the reason why it is difficult for the conservation of these species, is because of its slow reproductive cycles. So unlike other insects, mosquitoes, the reproduction cycle happens very, very rarely. In fact, it is not even seasonal, right? It is not even seasonal, and it happens very rarely. And also they have a very long lifespan of 10 to 20 years. So it makes them very difficult for recovery. So even let's say they found a particular species, or let's say one or two important or let's say one or two tarantulas, and then they immediately wanted or took it for keeping them as a pet, or maybe to transport it elsewhere, to export it elsewhere, the illegal pet trade, right? So obviously for those species to once again revive itself, revive its population, or to even bring back its numbers, the counts to the normal, it even can take decades, right? Considering how long they live and also considering their very slow reproductive cycle. So hence, what should be done? Encourage community reporting of illegal collection, just like how they do for tiger poachers, right? So we have certain incentives to those who report poaching of tigers. So similar kind of programs or schemes or incentives has to be created, so that these kind of illegal pet trade, or even people who kind of keep it at homes for as a pet or whatever, can be to some extent curtailed, provided community reporting is encouraged by providing some incentives for those, or let's say if they provide information about those who illegally collect them. And also, rather than just keeping them captive for pet purposes, the government also has to make sure that alternatively it can promote captive breeding programs for pet trade instead of wild collection, just like how they have done for few ornamental fishes, right? Because to some extent it is very difficult to control the urges of the people, right? So you do not know how the implementation happens. So rather, it is better researchers or scientific labs or even certain zoos or certain wildlife sanctuaries can have certain breeding captive spaces where scientists, they can breed these spiders in-house, so that even the pet trade, even if it is happening, right, it can somehow be ensured that the species tarantula, or let's say the number of tarantula species are not getting reduced, right? So that is also one important thing. Anyway, this is more than sufficient that we have discussed. At least at the end of the day, if you can just think in or keep in mind that tarantula is a spider species, to some extent is good, right? Now, yeah, let's solve the question. Consider the following statements regarding tarantulas, which was recently discovered in the Western Ghats. Some species live at elevations above 2000 meters, making them among the highest living tarantulas. Tarantulas play an important role as natural pest controllers and are considered keystone species. All tarantula species in India are widespread and not endemic to specific habitats. Please use the comment section, leave your answers, and yeah, that's all for this particular video. I hope you have liked the video. So that's all for today. Signing off, this is Madan Gopal. Have a beautiful day.